All right, check, check. Oh, man. All right, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. Inshallah, you're doing okay. Um, Today, I'd like to address. All right, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. Inshallah, you're doing okay. I'd like to address the murder of Imam Hassan Sharif today. Murdered earlier this morning. Really hard to fathom. Murdered earlier this morning. Hold on a minute, everybody. I'm trying to fix something on the sound, so forgive me. Hold on. A lot of you probably received the news. Initially, it was a report of a shooting after Fajr, at Masjid Muhammad, formerly Muhammad's Mosque number 24. The thing that was disturbing was that this happened, and I'm going to be real honest with you guys. One of the things that bothers me, per se, so let me throw this out. The thing that was disturbing was that this happened. For quite a number of years in the African American Muslim community, we have enjoyed relative calm in terms of the protection of our community. When we have lost our spiritual leaders, it's been more in the space that they were older. We spent, like myself, I spent my career watching, my whole Muslim experience watching Imam Hassan Muhammad, and I guess the point that I'm making is that my whole Muslim experience watching Imam Hassan Muhammad, it was a growth thing. We watched, if you will, we watched our leaders, and that was important. And we haven't had this for those who are 50 and above. We remember 50 years ago the Hanafi massacres that happened in Washington D.C. We haven't had anything like that. In fact, when the transition went from the first to the second, there wasn't bloodshed that was shed. There was ideological engagement, and people finding where they were comfortable with their religiosity, but it wasn't what we're seeing now. There wasn't bloodshed that was shed. There was ideological. So what is problematic with this is we have murder. in the African American Muslim community, which is substantial because whether we want to say it or not, whether we want to state it or not, we this is a time where loving God, loving the Word of God, religiosity, loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many cases, it's not a popular thing. We talk about the Muslim community, but large portions of the Muslim community don't practice regularly. If the pie is 100%, maybe being generous, 15 to 10% of Muslims go to the masjid on a regular basis, fast, which makes this even more important because we're dealing with the loss of a member, Imam Hassan Sharif, who was a member of not only the religious family but our spiritual realm. Which makes it even more important because we've spoken at length about the loss of Imam Hassan Sharif, who was a member of not only the religious. We've spoken at length about the loss of our spiritual leaders. Imam Muhammad, Imam Qasim, and I can go on and on and on. And these were leaders who were advanced in their years, but deadly potent in their wisdom and their guidance. Imam Omar from Long Beach. I can give you a long list of people. My point is we've enjoyed this engagement where, in many regards, the African American Imam, and in many regards, was untouchable. The roots in the DNA that come from the Nation of Islam belie the fact, if you will, that we, as converts and people that grow up, particularly in the African American community, we live by codes. And so the thing that's troubling at this point in time is a code has been broken in this space, that the Imam was murdered, and it's a lot of, there are a lot of unsettling facts about that. The man was by himself coming out of the masjid. We don't do that. We talk about, general orders. General order number 5, do not leave your task until properly relieved. Properly relieved meant that the men, the children, and the women, and particularly the imam, got to their place safely, the destination. Either we took them or they let us know when we got there. But this man was found by himself, shot multiple times. The women, particularly the imam, got to their place safely, the destination. The larger issue, if you will. But this man was found by himself. Is this indicative of something that's coming down the road for us? While we've enjoyed a certain type of pop culture, notoriety, and bravado in being African American Muslims, has the brand worn whereby the people in our communities, because for long standing, someone said, well, is Newark a dangerous place? I'm like, hell yeah, Newark's a dangerous place, just like Chicago and DC. Parts of it, I said, but that masjid on the corner in the middle of it stood for a certain type of excellence that people could depend on, that people would gravitate to, that people, for lack of a better word, brothers and sisters, were able to I might be wrong. That people could depend on. That there was a historical narrative of these masjids. And Muhammad's Mosque number 25 is indicative of one of those masjids. So my question is, is this a new trend? Is this something that we're beginning to look at? Let me give a shout out, give salams. Code of Culture, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Shout Out Show. Also want to give a shout out to my Shout Out Show soldiers. I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to start the show and come back. And we really want to dig into this, brothers and sisters, because this is serious. When we lose an African American imam, these are not people who, in the traditional sense, they don't have time to be students of knowledge and that's a full-time job. No, they are students of knowledge, but they work jobs. They work like the brother worked at the airport for TSA. Imam Hassan, and they are people who are directly rooted to the community to which they come from. We got to talk about it today here on the Shout Out Show. Don't move. All right, sorry about that. I want to give a shout out to the North Jersey Muslim community, Imam Hassan Sharif's family, our spiritual family at Masjid Muhammad in Newark on Orange Avenue. Uh, Sister Sadana won't be able to join us. She is part of that community. So please make the dua for her and people who really believed in something in the concept of Islam being a changing force in our communities. We've seen it in our inner cities. We've seen it leave the inner cities and permeate other places. I'm just going to ask that we make dua for that because at this point in time, I'm almost at a loss of words. I'm going to tell you guys something. When I heard that the Imam was deceased, I heard he was shot, he was in critical condition. Then the word came down that he had returned to Allah. Inna lillahi wa inna alayhi raji'un. It struck me at such a profound space. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. I did what a man does when you lose something that's valuable to your heart, to your family, to your man. I cried. I had to get it out. I literally had to cry because that type of loss, that type of L is something that we don't get back. We're not producing at the level of imams that you had from back in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, in the 80s. We're not doing that. So when you lose particularly a young imam, it does ring. And now we have to sit back and watch the police or the law enforcement process play out. I'll be honest with you, I'm old school. I'm hoping that we get to the perpetrator before the police get to the perpetrator. I said it and I stand by it. Let me welcome and shout out your family. Brother Altaf, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Beloved, thank you so much. For those that know, Brother Altaf is a Canadian envoy to the show. He comes in. We call him Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down. Thank you so much. Long-term supporter. Sister Reed, wa alaikum assalam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you, your family, Brother Derek, and Brother Jawan. Wishing him well as the new career being a visiting nurse. So tell him I said hello. And my sister, I haven't heard on here in a minute, Sister Sonia Dalton Salahuddin. What's going on, beloved? Now, you may have been making it on the show, but the show is not good unless you're on the show. He's all right, but when we have you, we know that we're doing some good stuff. Okay, Altaf, I think I fixed the alternative audio. Inshallah, forgive me, everybody. Normally, I try and work this out a little bit, but I've been, a little tied up. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Brother Bilal. So much on the show. I'm going to give some shout out for people. Jamila joined. Wow, we have some people on. Teresa with A, Korean Muslim. Okay. Rock City Productions joined. Thank you so much for joining in, everybody. I try to make this a community thing for those who are joining for the first time. We normally come on at 5 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Eastern Time, and we come on every Wednesday. We are the Shout Out Show. So let me get to a little bit of a narrative, if you allow me to. I'm going to get to a little bit of a narrative. Oh, I also want to give a shout out to my little brother JT coming in from Milwaukee. What's going on, beloved? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you, my dear brother. Thank you so much for joining on. So, I mean, I'm not going to, out of respect for the Imam and the immediacy of his murder, his death, may Allah accept him as a shaheed, and there are no questions about his character, and he's accepted into paradise immediately, expeditiously. You know, we have to begin having this conversation, brothers and sisters. Could this be the end of the romanticism of the African American Imam in our inner city? This is a breach. This is not happen. You know, a car wreck, a heart attack. We understand those things, but this is a deliberate taking of life. Multiple gunshots. This was a targeting. I don't know what. Allah knows best what this is about, but to the untrained eye, it feels that it was a breach. For a long time, brothers and sisters, let's be honest, in the African American Muslim community, at that masjid, you could touch a whole lot of things. You can have Islamophobia, but you weren't going to touch that masjid. Because the engagement of the masjid and the community that surrounded it was entangled, engaged, and it was productive, prolific, and profound. That a nuanced alternative to traditional black church lied there, and at the core of it, it didn't come to make you Muslim. It didn't force Islam on you, but it gave you a front row seat to what this religion was and how people frame their behavior around this aspect of serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These things we know. But that being said, the question now is, why are we minus an imam? In the city of Newark, last month, they had a time to be grateful. Shout out to Sister Nisa. They had a time to be grateful. It was well attended. They had entertainment. People came from around the country. It's a very big cultural event in the W.D. Muhammad community. And Masjid Muhammad, Imam Hassan, and everybody in North Jersey, they were a part of it. And now we stand less than a month away from that, and we are missing a very, very beloved Imam. You know, we can get very, very introspective during these times. We can ask why. We can ask, you know, who, what, where, and when. And you can get our answers, but it's not necessarily going to quench your thirst for justice or the process of something being righted. You know, the immediacy of the murder of Imam Hassan Sharif is that there's no process to get us back to right. A student of knowledge, a student of Islam, when they make the process that in terms of everything else that has blessed my life, I'm going to make this a part of my DNA and share it with people, I feel robbed. I feel robbed. I feel, in many regards, that the person or persons that did this, they weren't uncivilized. They weren't buffoons. They weren't animals. They knew what this was going to be. They knew who this man was. He returns to Allah probably less than 15 minutes after he's made Fajr prayer. That he's left his home, his wife, his children to pray at the masjid, and he didn't pray alone at the masjid. He didn't pray alone. He did not pray Fajr alone. The culture of which we talk about, the W.D. Muhammad community, comes from the NOI. If you look at general orders, it would tell you that there's a protocol for security, that we protect our own. While we love our community, our black community, there's still a narrative where we have to protect our own. We can't let our guard down. This is why Islamophobia is not a bandied about concept in the African American community because we already have protection. We already have protocols about how we protect our children and our women. This needs to be a mandate now about us protecting our spiritual leaders. We don't have large amounts of money where we can give them stipends, we can give them houses and send them to school. We don't have professional imams. But we have professional ethics in the context of how we protect them. This is what makes them even more valuable. And that we've lost one somehow registers as a failure because we are people who grow up. We are people of codes. This is what distinguishes African American Muslims and some non-African American, but this is the idea that this religion requires a code of ethics and a code of execution. That we sit here now minus somebody from our blood family and our spiritual family, and we have to allay ourselves with the process of law enforcement. That the immediacy now is that there is a legal process to go, no. If you hear my voice in Newark, whoever this perpetrator is, we need to come. We will look for you. Don't feel safe. Don't feel accomplished. Don't feel like we're going to understand your feelings and your morality. You robbed our community of a precious jewel. You could have taken money, car, but you took a life. And that life was connected to this community. And it's a valuable life. It's like if you pull a root out of the ground, there are other trees that wouldn't be affected. But in Islam, there are other trees because we're so interconnected with history. Not just with history, but with action. You know, Allah never wastes the work of a righteous worker. Righteous worker. We're missing someone who's righteous and a worker in our community. There needs to be outrage. And for the people of that community that surround that masjid, whoever that person is, you need to turn them over to us. I don't want to hear anything about no snitching. I don't want to revisit the first 48. We need answers and we want a response. And I'm going to tell this and I'm going to say this. Whether I'm wrong or not, that this requires an aggressive response. Not alhamdulillah, this response, an aggressive response. Because if somebody feels good-natured enough and free enough to rob us, to take one of our jewels from the community, it could be you next. It could be me next. And I'm going to say this to all the imams. If you have an imam, brothers and sisters, say this, tell them, not from me, from you. Imam, we love you, we love your family, but we need to protect you. Let us protect you. We can't have these losses, brothers and sisters. We're in a state of war. We're literally in a state of war to maintain status quo. The idea that, and be very careful, brothers and sisters, the idea of taking Black history out of the school is to take Black Muslim history out of the school. It's to take Black women history out of the school. It's to take the apparatus to look through a lens and say, no, this is the America I see. The thing that may have killed Imam Hassan Sharif, besides his perpetrator with a gun, is a lack of opportunity in the area of Newark. Crime in the area of Newark. It can also be the issue that education opportunities aren't there. Believe me, brothers and sisters, if you're missing these things, life doesn't mean a lot. Whether You like what I'm saying or not, it just needs to be said. See, back in 1973, you had ideological differences between Muslims. It ended violently in 73. I live in Washington, D.C. I'm from D.C. I remember it coming across the news I remember it just like it was yesterday. I was not Muslim then, but I understood that there was something wrong at the core of these people who both affirmed that they had a love for God and will work accordingly. But this is different. Something is drastically different with this. We've been robbed. Someone is taking something from us. And don't get me wrong, nothing happens by mistake. Things happen by the leave of Allah. I know that. But this is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it's also a warning. It's also a warning. You see, we watch television now, and we read about Gaza to the point that we're numb. We see the atrocities against the Palestinians, and we're numb. It's almost like, what else is new? My news feed is going to have something about Palestine. Now, they're attacking people in Beirut. I told you guys the nature of a serial killer. Opportunity. And let me be very careful, because I don't want to categorize anything. But the nature of the death and the murder of Imam Hassan Sharif mirrors what we're seeing over in Gaza. That people are making an assessment to value life for other people, not themselves, for other people. And this is a targeting. I've been around a long time. This is targeting. I remember a man got upset with me one time. He challenged me to a fight. It was a Friday. He said, I'll come get you. I said, this is where I'm going to be. I'm going to be here from 1:30 to 2:15. You can find me here any Friday. We're not hard to find as Muslims. Our locations are not secret. Our activities are not clandestine. Prayer, fasting, Hajj, Umrah. It's not a big category. They're very, very important categories, but these are about life cycles. And now we're sitting here in 2024 looking at the disruption of life cycle. If you've ever, as a teacher, if you've ever had to learn or go to the funeral of a youth, of a teacher, of a student, or someone you taught, it's transformational because you begin to fit yourself in these itty bitty pockets of that person's life and ask the question, what could I have done better? How could I have helped this person a little bit better? You guys have heard me talk about my greatest failures, not as a comedian, but as a teacher. That a young man, my first year teaching, Jeremy Clark, I did everything I could do for him. We argued, we fought it out, we hugged it out, but some years later, I found out that he was doing life in the state of Wisconsin, and not only doing life, but he was looking for a pen pal because he was now a Muslim. I feel that way right now in regards to the murder of Imam Hassan Sharif. Just the title of Imam designates that a person has framed purpose in their life, not for them, but for us. And to have it ripped, if you will, to have it stolen, stripped away from a cultural quilt that is so important. That what these imams do is give us spiritual, cultural competency to stand on the minbar every Friday and give that message. I was asked to do a kuppah. I always turn it down. I was like, I know the struggles of the imam. I said, I don't even want to be in his shoes as a guest. And it's largely because, not that I can't give a kupa, but I really want to look at a person whose life and purpose have been defined by the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what I'm talking about. And we don't get there. We're not seeing it. I'm going to close here. We're not going to do the whole hour because I have to listen to my own words. I'm grieving. I'm grieving for Imam Hassan's family, the Jersey community, because just the idea that someone will harm him, it just sends shockwaves through our community. When someone is sick and you love them, you know how you feel. But when someone is violated and you love them, it's a different feeling. You know, we find ourselves in this space. I want to give a shout out, Brother Eric. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Muslim Journal, much love to you. So I wasn't able to do a visit, a time to be grateful, but you know, I love you guys. But I want to put this in perspective. And this is just me. I ain't speaking for nobody else. Nobody's masjid. This is a man who's hurt. This is not a time for softness. This is a time for hard resolve. This community is one of the most unique communities in the world, bar none. From Garvey to Elijah Muhammad to W. Muhammad to Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan to Malcolm to Muhammad. This is a unique community. Unique in a way that the love of Islam for African Americans comes through so many levels of stress and strife that it has to be powerful. That it has to be the rose that grows from beneath the concrete. It has to be this, brothers and sisters. It can't be anything else. It can't be me hustling back in the day and finding comedy and taking comedy and telling jokes for the upliftment for my people because I watch other people do it from a minbar. That this love has lifted communities. That lifted communities. You know what I was when I was a teacher? I wasn't a great teacher, brothers and sisters. But I was a good Muslim. I knew how to love students. Ask me where I learned how to do that. Ask me where I learned. I didn't work suburban schools. I work with our people. And this religion that we have in these corridors of inner cities and things like that, this love of Islam is a unique love. And that's why they love Malcolm. And that's why they love Muhammad Ali. And that's why it takes a black man to say, we're going to have 1 million black men come to Washington, D.C. and 2 million show up. This ain't magic. It's not magic. If you want to understand a miracle, take people who are denied God, give them a little bit of it, and watch what they do. We're not talking Quran Sunnah. We're not talking about Azhar University. We're talking about people who take this little kernel of Islam and say, let me rub it over and watch how it changes the community. I feel disrespected for our community because Imam Hassan is somebody who clearly had a strong impact in that area. That had a visceral response when you say his name and people go, what did he do? And they know what he did. These are the type of legacies that we're turning out, and it's not just the legacies of the imams; it's the legacy of the communities that they lead. And over and over and over, I'm going to tell you something. It's getting buried and buried and buried and buried. Well, damn it, it's not going to happen with this imam. Let this be a mandate for the imams to return to Allah, and the imams that are still here, that we've got to restructure the argument or the narrative of who we're going to be moving forward. When I was growing up, when you saw the Muslims, what we say? Don't mess with the Muslims. The baddest drug dealers in Washington, D.C., the Muslims went to Mayfair Mansion, the Nation of Islam went to Mayfair Mansion, and talked with those brothers, and they left Mayfair Mansion. Not a gun, not a cop, not a pistol, not a knife. They walked in with the fact that I fear nothing but Allah. And to understand what Muhammad's Mosque number 25, now Masjid Muhammad in Newark is, it's institutional. It's institutional. Very few places are institutional at the same time, but at the same time also they're transformational. The amount of people that came in one way and went out another. I'm a convert. I tell you, I was rough. But it's people like Imam Hassan, it's people like Imam Hassan Sharif, it's people like Imam Muhammad. And and I don't have long engaging stories about Imam Muhammad. He gave me a mission and walked off. I didn't see the genius of the mission until I looked around and go, that's what he meant. So I'm going to close on the fact that we pick up the phone and call your imam. Pick up the phone and call your imam. Tell your imam, I love you, I love your family. We need you. We need to protect you. How can we help protect you? Talk to the people that are in the masjid and say, we can't lose that one. If Allah calls you home, that's fine. But anything other than that, it's not good. And repossessing and repositioning our imams and the imams' wives, the people who are giving of their communities so much. Imam Qasim Khan and Imam Wazir and Imam Yusuf, Imam Talib, all these people who are, Imam Zayd, Imam Sarah, all these people who are literally giving themselves to the community. That we, brothers and sisters, need to protect the spiritual intelligentsia, the spiritual jewels that are in our midst. Now, if you ever read General Orders, it's funny. I believe in General Order number 5. In fact, Imam Qasim Khan wrote, he said, never leave your post until properly relieved. I'll throw this out. To our imams, return to Allah, you are not properly relieved. To our sisters that leave the masjid and walk to their cars on their own, no. We are not properly relieved until we know that they are at their cars and they got home. To our children who are under attack through these educational systems, if you got them in kindergarten, you're not properly relieved till they walk across that stage with a high school diploma or a BA or a master's or a PhD or a law degree. We can't rest, brothers and sisters. This is a call to duty to be diligent and redefine the love of those people that love Allah so much that they give themselves to us. And let's recalibrate what that value is. This community, particularly any Muslim community, but particularly the African American Muslim community here in the United States, cannot afford to lose religious identity nor religious leaders. We're not turning them out like that. And what I mean is, it's hard to be an imam. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's difficult to be an imam. I know imams spend so much time and they spend so much time in the community, they lose their own families because they're not home. They're trying to make sure we're good. Well, dog, on the flip the script, we need to make sure that they're good. And we need to make sure that they're loved. We need to make sure that they are protected. And I'm not talking about let's do a launch good campaign. No. Pick up your phone, call your imam, and make sure that they're all right. Where are you going, imam? You're not going by yourself. Where are you going, imam? I will meet you there. Where's your wife going, imam? She's not going by herself. And then permeate that to the elders. What time do you need me to pick you up to come to the service? I'll take you home. Masjid Worthy Muhammad, Brother James from the nation, but Brother James was distinguished. You know why? Because on a rainy day or a real hot sunny day down in Houston, if a sister got out of the car on a rainy day, he was always there with an umbrella. And he would walk the sisters to the masjid to make sure they didn't get wet. Now, if you're a brother around Brother James, you got soaked. He ain't care because you're a dude. But just think of that, brothers and sisters. Think of the love and dedication. Think of the fact that the Brother James, the Brother Johns, and some of our giants in the community, they live that code. They live that code. They weren't lazy. You can't be lazy in a righteous worker. They were not lazy. They were allergic to laziness. And they were addicted in the most spiritual halal way to service. So I'm going to tune out. I hope you guys forgive me if I said some things that were wrong. It ain't the first time. But if I said some things that were right, and I will reiterate, I think that every one of us today should pick up the phone and call your imam and make sure that your imam is okay. Because sometimes, brothers and sisters, it's not even about our imams being violated or shot. Some of our imams are dealing with financial problems. Some of our imams are dealing with health problems. We don't see him and we think it's out of sight, out of mind. Call and visit. Show up at imam's house with a bucket of chicken, halal. You ain't got to stay. Give it to him and walk away just to let him know we love you and I'm on post. I'm on post. Islam denotes the fact. And argue with me if you want. It denotes the fact that if you're a true believer, you are on post. Till Allah calls you home, you are not relieved. And that's the motivation. I can't say that this in a book of hadith. I can't give you every quote from the Quran. No, I can't. I can give it to you from here because this is the thing that allowed me and drove me to be Muslim. This is the thing that said, I got to have that. It's the thing that for Imam Hassan, he said, I got to be an imam. I got to serve these people. Allah's calling on me. Well, brothers and sisters, a wake-up call. We do. And if you don't want to hear it, I'm going to be honest, we've been sleeping for a long time. And I want to give a shout out to Brother Mark. You know, Mark Manley, scholar. Love you, brother. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm going to put him up here, too. That's right. People walking around here thinking the imams are bulletproof. Yeah. Yeah. People, animals don't care about your imam. Desperate people don't care about your imam. A man with a gun in his pocket ain't gonna go, oh, I ain't gonna shoot him because you know what? He just prayed Fajr. They ain't gonna ask. That's not the way it works. Give a shout out to Sister Janice Tough. How you doing? Thank you so much, sister. She's coming all the way from Seattle. But I'm going to tell y'all this, and Mark, I appreciate, man. Mark, good friend of mine. That's right. Imams ain't bulletproof. And we ain't talking about bulletproof. We talking about life. Imams go through stuff. So, Mark, I'm going to call you, make sure you all right. And I'm going to call a couple of other imams just to put it out there. But make sure if the slightest thing, the littlest thing that you could do, if you don't call, text your man and say, hey man, you all right? I love you. I love your family. Do you need anything? 9.9 times out of 10, the man gonna say I'm good, but hit him anyway. All right. So listen, that's the show for today. Y'all have been amazing. Thank you so much. I needed to do this. I had a difficult thing. I almost didn't do the show today. I was angry. But I was wounded. I felt like I've been robbed. And if you haven't been robbed before, what sucks about being robbed is you totally at the behest of the logic of the robber. So this person who took the life of Imam Hassan, I'll tell you, and I'm gonna put it with hey, Allah deal with me later, but I'm like, hey fella, I hope we find you before the police do. You might do yourself a favor by turning yourself into the police before the Muslims find you. All right? Word. That's the show for today. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. Please keep Imam Hassan Sharif and his family in your du'as. There is, I think there's a Launch Good campaign going. But let's take this example that Allah has given us and let's call those who are still here. Imam Hassan been called home. Some of these imams still, they ain't been called home. And you don't know when it's going to happen. So stop being lazy. Checking on your imam is part of being a righteous worker. So call. Make sure they are right. Okay? All right, I'm out. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's the ShOut show. Be blessed. Thank you so much.